Welcome back. Joining me now is Lisa Sather to talk about how some medications can impact how our brains function. Lisa, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Beth.
So the effects of certain drugs are different on older people than they are on younger people. Can you start out by explaining why that is a thing?
Yes, sure. It's really interesting. Older folks are actually more than twice as susceptible to the effects and actually side effects of medications as younger folks. And there's really several reasons for that. Generally speaking, I think it's important to note that for drugs to work in our body, they actually have to first be absorbed into our bodies through our intestine. They're then distributed throughout our body, eventually metabolized, broken down, and then eliminated from our bodies. And as we age, things change with that. So, specifically, as we get older, there tends to be more body fat we put on. We tend to have less water composition in our body. So drugs actually are either distributed in fat or distributed in water. They've got to dissolve one of those two ways. So as we age and we have more body fat, there's actually the chance to accumulate drugs that are stored in fat, so they may build up. And then those drugs which have to be dissolved in water may tend to be more concentrated because there's less water in our body for them to be distributed within. So that's a couple of the things. Also, as we age, our kidney function just generally declines over time. That is a natural part of the aging process. Our liver function may decline a little bit as well. Sometimes our stomachs don't work as they normally do. We might have more acid production, and acid is also a contributing factor to how some drugs are broken down. So just overall speaking, there's all these things that come together to contribute to why, as we get older, drugs may work differently. Folks may end up getting drugs built up in their system because of all those things that I just mentioned to you. And that's why actually there are situations in which we can reduce the doses of drugs in older folks and still get the same therapeutic effect as we would if we had a higher dose, because they're just not eliminating them as normally as they would as a younger person might do.
Okay, so let's talk about some common medications that folks might take, and let's start with over-the-counter sleep aids. What is in that kind of medication, and what is that doing or could potentially do to a brain?
Yeah, that's a great question. So over-the-counter, meaning available without a prescription, sleep aids are commonly used and sometimes purchased by folks in order to help them fall asleep at night. The most common component of an over-the-counter sleep medicine is first, what we call a first-generation antihistamine, such as diphenhydramine, and you've probably heard of that as the brand name Benadryl. Also, we may see over-the-counter sleep preparations be in combination with some pain relievers, such as Tylenol. So that's basically Benadryl, or the Tylenol PM that you've heard of is Benadryl plus Tylenol. And basically antihistamines are normally used by folks for treating allergies, as we know. But one of the side effects of antihistamines is drowsiness and sedation. So that basically is why they're used for sleep medicines. The unfortunate thing with some of these medicines is they can cause slowing down, a little bit of the brain, and so we'll get into that, I guess, too.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my next question. So that's what it does. It slows down the brain.
That's exactly right. In addition to the antihistamine effects, which is what we use them for allergies for, they do cause slowing down of the impulses in the brain, and that is in effect what makes us sleepy and tired. Now, I think it's really interesting. I had just read this recently, that a single effective dose of diphenhydramine, for example, can cause driving impairments similar to having a blood alcohol content of 0.10,
wow,
which is higher than the legal limit in most states of 0.08. So I think that's really interesting. Important also to note with these medicines, they can cause problems with memory, confusion, and those kinds of things. So it's something we just really want to watch out for and typically avoid in older folks.
Okay, so let's switch and talk about some prescription drugs. So benzodiazepines, they're a class of medications that are sometimes prescribed for sleep, but also maybe anxiety or depression, seizures. What effects do these medications have on a person's brain?
Yes, so these medicines are going to work similarly kind of to what we've talked about with the antihistamines. They cause dampening of some of those effects, some of those chemical messengers in the brain, which is why it can be effective for seizures. But also, in addition, for For sleep, they're used to kind of calm people down. And also some folks may have had experience using these in terms of pre-medication for anesthesia prior to procedures, because they actually can cause a little bit of amnesia. We kind of forget what has happened, and so that is what they're used for in that respect.
So benzodiazepine, that might not be a term that everybody is very familiar with. What would commonly be referred to as these medications, or what might people have heard that called?
So, some of the most common ones that we see are alprazolam, which is a generic name for Xanax, clonazepam, which is a generic name for Klonopin, diazepam, which is a generic name for Valium, and temazepam, which is a generic name for Restoril, and they all end in PAM, so that's a kind of an easy way to remember what those are.
Okay, and then some of the common sleep aids that folks might know, like Ambien, Lunesta. Can you talk a little bit about what those do to the brain?
Yes, absolutely. So these we affectionately call the Z drugs because they either start with Z, the generic name, Zolpidem, Zaloplan, or Clopazone, or have a Z in them. So that's just kind of one of those things you might have heard. And they work similarly to the benzodiazepine. They are structurally different, but chemically are working the very same way. So I think one of the things important to note with these drugs, side effect wise, is that they can cause also some amnesia-like symptoms, and folks may actually end up doing things in their sleep that they forget they're doing, like sleep driving or sleep eating.
Okay, and we're almost out of time, but just really quickly, Lisa, are there alternatives that people can use rather than going to their medicine cabinet?
Yes, great question. So sleep. Really important to do appropriate sleep hygiene, where you do the same routine every night, avoid stimulants before bed, and all those kinds of things. People can check that out, Google that, and find out what the appropriate use of that is. And then also melatonin may be a helpful agent for some folks to help them reestablish sleep patterns.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
I'd like to thank Diana and Lisa for being on our show today. We've talked about some of the brain's natural aging and some things to be on the lookout for when it comes to your brain's health. Tune in next week when we'll talk about how you can keep your brain sharp and young with diet, exercise, and even being around your friends and family. Until then, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the YouTube icon. Special thanks to Fire Tower Coffee House and Roasters. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.